Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of supernatural fantasy and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Killjoys as well as the latest episode of Dark Matters. Starting off with Killjoys, we have the team being on their first kind of mission with the head honcho of the Rat, their boss. Basically, the mission he's sending them on. Basically, some Killjoys had gone missing. And basically, they sent out a distress signal, but Khylen covered it up. And it's basically their job to investigate, find out what is the deal. Why was Khylen trying to hide? What was he trying to hide? I really like this episode because of the twists and turns. Some of the twists I saw coming, I was like, okay, this lady here is like, okay. Basically, she was saying, was it her husband or her brother-in-law? I don't know which sister was married to him, but nevertheless, that the guy in the group, the guy Killjoy, had basically gone nuts and was just ranting all this crazy stuff. And the moment that happened, I was like, and the moment she shot him, and it came immediately, and she was the only one there. It was like in my mind, she's hallucinating. He's not real. He's like, I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, most likely they're already dead. And it turned out to be the case. That she was hallucinating from what seemed like moss to them. That wasn't actually what it was. It's actually these little creatures that basically, they look like moss, but basically they bite you and they make you hallucinate. And she was basically hallucinating the whole thing. Like her sister and this guy were already dead. They'd probably been dead for maybe weeks, maybe. Who knows how long they've been dead. She's probably been running. She basically been running around those mines those entire time, thinking they were still alive. It's kind of sad. Basically, you felt the moment they came across those bones, I was like, "That's them, isn't it?" Those things that picked their bones clean, and basically, in her delusion, she ended up falling to a pit and ended up getting killed by it. We didn't see it, but she ended up dying. Obviously, well, we saw that, but we didn't see the part where they most likely picked her bones clean. So I kind of felt bad for her. And what we ended up discovering is that the fact of the matter is these things, because they're green, because Davin figured it out by squishing one of them. Is just like, wait, these are the green things. It's like this is connected to what makes like the green goop that's used to make people level 6s. Like this is connected to it. That's why Khylen is trying to keep people out of it. Because at first it seems like, okay, it's a shut down mine because maybe they run out of resources. But they look all around those caves. Those stones on those walls are worth like at the very least $1 million. Like currency in this world. Like it's not even like, okay, there's not enough resources, but it's like, why did they abandon it? For one, there's all these deadly things in here, but two, it's also because Khylen's trying to cover up the fact is that these things help make level 6s. But it seems like whatever it's going on with Davin, which I'm thinking it has something to do with the experiment the military performed on him. Maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe it's something in his blood. But I feel like if it was something in his blood, maybe, you would think the same thing would happen for Johnny as well. But maybe it's just something. Maybe there's a mutation inside of Davin's blood. Or maybe it's just sheer will. I don't know. Maybe it's a combination of all three. Whereas he was able to reject the goo before when they were trying to make him into a level 6, he's able to propel these things too because they don't want to get near him. They're scared of him. He basically disgusts them. So I did like that thing at the beginning of the episode where it's just kind of like, oh, here's Khylen and he's talking to Dutch and it's just like, oh crap. He's like, well, you think this entire time what makes you think you aren't already a level 6 and stabbed her? But the moment the episode before the episode even got back to that part, I was like, she was hallucinating because you see her get bit by the thing and I was like, she was hallucinating and Khylen. She's actually stabbing herself. But what I do want to bring up is the fact of the matter is this is the second time we've seen another Dutch. Yes, the first time was in a mirror, so it's kind of like, okay, maybe her brain's playing tricks on her. This time, obviously, she's hallucinating, but I feel like there's much more to that. It's like they wouldn't throw that up there a second time, her talking to herself, being like describing herself as we. I'm thinking, whatever the situation may be, Dutch has a split personality. There's the side of her, the Dutch that we know, the kinder side of her that can kick some ass if she needs to. But there's the other side of her, the more cold-blooded killer, the one that Khylen made, the one that Khylen trained, that whenever basically maybe it's something Khylen did to her that made her do that, or specifically, maybe it's something Dutch did to herself. Basically, she couldn't handle the pressure of having to kill people, so she created a personality to handle all that stuff, and she kind of blacks out. It just automatically assumes she did it, which she did, but not realizing there's another Dutch. Or maybe there's something even more complex than that. But that's my current running theory about that. Just like that, for it to pop up again like that just tells me that that's not just something in the back of their, like just something like they're throwing, like for it to happen twice to me, especially because when she was walking away, you kind of see the other Dutch kind of leaning against the wall, smiling. So I'm thinking that's kind of supposed to be the more cold-blooded side of her personality. And just, it's very interesting, like, finding all that out. It's just like, what is up with, like, everything that's going down? Because they had Alvis with them, too. Obviously found that monk. Obviously, Alvis knew a lot of more stuff about the cavern and he kind of really led on. Basically, a Scarback story talking about, like, basically there were 12 monks that went off to fight the devil. Essentially, they all died, but it turns out that one of them survived. And, like, obviously, Alvis found it, but he didn't tell anyone else, which I'm like, why he didn't really tell anyone? The only person he really confided in was Dutch. He didn't tell Davin about it or Johnny, but he told Dutch, I guess, because it seems like they might have more than just, like, a friendship relationship. It seems like there might have been something in the past, because she's like, oh, this is the first time I've seen you without the robe on. Was like, well, it's not the first time, actually. So implying maybe they've hooked up. Maybe it was never anything serious. Maybe it was kind of like a one-night stand type of situation. I don't know. We still don't know, like, their backstory of how they even came to know each other. It'd be kind of interesting if we kind of got like a rewind episode where we kind of get to see where Johnny and Dutch first met and kind of see where a lot of other people were. Find out, like, exactly what Davin was doing. Obviously, we got a clue as to what Davin was doing, but nevertheless, it'd be kind of interesting to kind of get like a episode to kind of show like what was going down at that point in the time in the past. But the fact of the matter is, like, what this all has to do with it, like, basically, the Scarbacks have a long connected history with whatever Khylen's doing, like, the whole thing about, like, that Davin saw, he saw Dutch as well as all those Scarbacks and Khylen fighting. How old is that memory? Like, like, what does it all mean? And what is this devil that the Scarbacks fought? I mean, the monks fought, and only one of them got away. It's like, what was it they fought? It's just so many answers. Questions, not answers. Not many answers, just many questions. And we see that Alvis is kind of going to try and, go to a monastery, essentially, and look at some records and try to figure out the whole message, because he found that message from the monk who had basically wrote it on his own skin and kind of peeled it off to kind of leave as a message for anyone that found him. So essentially, that's what they were originally there to discover. Like, those original 3 Killjoys was there to retrieve that monk. But I don't know if that's part of the reason why. Maybe that's also another side of things that Khylen wanted to keep buried in that mine. So, I don't know. On the flip side of this episode, we got Potters essentially trying to, do things that, like, you could immediately tell it's like, okay, she's trying to dig up evidence, kind of turn against that guy. She's basically being held hostage by, essentially, I think what I thought she was going to do was try and record that video that showed her, him killing, that dude from last episode. The older guy from the company. I already forgot his name. I feel so bad about it. But, was it Hills? Was that him? But essentially, him, like, dying. Like, I thought she was going to try and send that information to her mom or dad. We did get to meet her dad this episode. Who, interestingly enough, is Adler from 12 Monkeys. I thought that was kind of interesting. I always loved the, like, it's like you recognize one sci-fi actor from another sci-fi show. To me, I really enjoy that. But nevertheless, he basically was saying, like, you're safer where you are. Don't, like, your mother can't really do anything, even though she is part of that head of one of the 9 families, and it's like he's saying he can't do anything about it. Essentially, and what was really messed up is when you find out that Potters is basically held captured. Their anklet on her leg, like, she gets too far away, it will explode. I did like what she did to that guy. Essentially, he has a condition that basically his heart has to be like the liquid accumulates in it, and it has to be drained like every month. Basically, because his family has such a long line of incest, it kind of created kind of a genetic disorder in them like that. So basically, during that, she knocked him out, knocked out the guard, basically did a lot of stuff, and it's kind of like, at the last minute, she reveals, it's like, okay, yeah, actually, that anklet thing you had on me, yeah, I've actually wrapped it around your heart, so you might not want to follow me, because you might be dead, you might end up dying. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Side note, because it's connected to that, the fact is Johnny sent her that message saying like, "I'll come and get you as soon as possible," and she's like, "Johnny said that, really?" And then basically Lucy was pointing out the fact that she kind of noticed something like psychological, essential psychological lusting, and it's like that's kind of no surprise because it did seem like around that episode where Johnny last season when Johnny got her drugs, and isn't it called Jack? When he got her that drug, it seemed like that episode they kind of bonded a lot. So I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. It does seem like, especially after the kiss too, it does seem like maybe there's something there. I just hope it doesn't end up being like a Davin situation. It's already weird enough that she possibly has feelings for him after the whole thing with his brother. But granted, that was kind of under different circumstances, maybe. Because remember, the whole thing about that was because it's like, well, Davin was kind of broken and she wanted to fix him. And she felt like if she fixed him, maybe he'd want to stick around. Like, she kind of knew it was just kind of not meant to be anything serious, but she wants to feel needed. That's kind of what Pri had brought up. So that was kind of like, I hope it doesn't become a situation like that where she feels like she wants Johnny to need her type of situation, that it's just a legitimate situation where they both mutually like each other. But as we can see, she ends up getting kidnapped at the end of the episode. Can only assume maybe someone connected with Khylen, because we haven't actually seen Khylen since the first episode, since he got taken away by whoever those guys are. They're pretty top level people or whatever. But nevertheless, whatever the situation may be, like, last time we saw him, he was in stasis, and like, or whatever situation that was, it looked like they probably like put him in stasis or whatever. But last time we saw was Fancy looking after him. So, and something that just kind of popped in the back of my mind, we've never actually seen Dutch hurt before, have we? She's been hurt before to the point she's bled, right? I think she has. Because it's the fact of the matter is, because maybe she hasn't, because for them to throw out, like, to even make that a possibility, it's kind of like, because I swear she's been hurt before, but maybe she hasn't. Like, if I actually went back and rewatched the first season, maybe she never actually got hurt to the point that she was bleeding. Because it's like, you would have, because it would have been interesting if you found out, like, oh, this entire time she has been a level 6. That would have been very interesting. But I feel like there's much more to it. I don't think Khylen's going to make her level 6 because I feel like she's so much more. She's something greater, something stronger, much better, in her own words, weapon, And she plans on kind of using herself as a weapon. She's tired of kind of acting like the scared little girl that she used to be. So she's kind of going on offense. She even tracked down her bosses and was like, yo, I'm not taking orders from you. I've spent my entire life following other people's orders. It's time I do things my way. So it kind of seems like I don't know how to interpret that. Part of me feels like maybe that's a little bit of that other Dutch coming out, or maybe that's just Dutch, taking charge, being like, it's time for me to put my destiny in my own hands type of thing. So I don't know, very interesting episode. I almost completely skipped over the fact is that Potter's found some plans, because I guess that was one thing she was going to bring up to Johnny, is the fact of the matter is it's not just the company doesn't plan on just building a wall around, just keeping the wall around Old Town. They plan on doing it to every town on Westerly, which we've never actually seen too many other places in Westerly. I mean, other towns, like Old Town's the only one we've really been to. It's kind of the main hub of the series, so I don't know. It'd be kind of interesting to find out why they're doing that. Maybe they're trying to starve out all of Westerly. Maybe the company has decided Westerly's not worth keeping around anymore. Just wipe them all out type of thing. I don't know. Maybe it's not even the company. Maybe there's people within the company who've got their own nefarious schemes. Like whoever is working with Khylen and within the rack, maybe some of those same people are working within the company. Who knows, like, the reason why a lot of things have played out the way they have. I mean, we know there's a lot of corrupt people, but we don't know just at what level that corruption is. What I mean, whether it's just people in there trying to make their own way just because they're like, oh, we're powerful, so we'll do whatever we want, or it's just someone at the top who's got an even bigger plan in store. I don't know. Hopefully these are some answers questions. I did it again. Some questions we get answered pretty soon. I'm very interested to see where things go down next episode. Now, moving on to Dark Matters, a very interesting episode, too. I did like the fact is this kind of did the same thing as Killjoys, where it's like, oh, we have kind of a cold open, and then it's kind of like a rewind to like, oh, a couple hours earlier. I did like that. Both shows did that. But what I liked about this episode is we have two kind of being a little upset about the whole, like, one situation, being depressed. She can't even get drunk because of all those nanomachines inside of her, just completely making it impossible for her to get drunk. she actually confides in 3 and tells him like exactly, and finally admits like why 1 was on the ship is because 3 was the number 1 suspect in his wife's death. Now, basically, she brings up the fact is that he was different from them. He came on the ship with the purpose of revenge, but he backed down. But the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, they were all he has. Like, all he had, because he didn't have his wife anymore. He'd basically abandoned his old face as well as his old life to be on the ship. And basically, they were all he had, and now he's gone. So, she's, like, super bummed. That basically, you know, it seems like they were alluding to it a little bit. It's like, what are we going to do, basically? Because it's like, he has 3 puts out the idea that basically whoever killed 1 is also the one that was trying to kill them as well. And basically, they're talking about the fact is we have all these companies. It's like, well, MK tried to help. They helped us get out of the prison, but she's like, yeah, but that's only to save their asses. What about all these other people? There's all these other people who are using us like puppets, and we kind of going along with it, but we have to stop that now. We have to cut the strings. We have to find ourselves. We have to put ourselves in a more advantageous position, basically, to make it so that we can't be used by people. Because, like, everyone has got their eyes set on us, and it's going to be a matter of time. Because even Eric brought it up a little bit, basically saying, like, sooner or later, there's people you count as allies. They will eventually turn on you, like, because they'll be kind of like, it'd be profitable to them to help. Like, it won't be profitable to help you because it put too much attention on them, so they'd have to cut ties with you. So it's like basically doing things the way you have been, trying to fly under the radar by faking some names, some IDs and stuff like that. It's not going to fly anymore. He's like, I'm going to give you some suggestions, but basically the crew doesn't trust the 3 new people. The lady, Eric's, and the doctor don't really trust them because they're new people. It's like, we've come to trust each other over this time. So obviously we've always had trust issues, but you know, even through everything, with everything they've been through, they've come together and they become stronger and tighter knit group, and they don't trust, you know, these outsiders. Basically even saying like, yo, you can't even walk around the ship freely. It's like, you can go here into your room, that's about it. We're the only ones allowed to carry guns type of situation, which turns out to be the right thing to do, because it seems like Eric's is working with the lady who's trying to track down 5. It doesn't seem like the doctor and the lady are a part of that. It seems like that's just him. But who knows? Like, he didn't bring it up in any conversation anytime he was with them. So I'm thinking that is something he's doing by himself. Basically giving status update reports and being like, okay, this is what happened. That's why he was so adamant about like, okay, I'm going to break out with you. Because it seemed very like he was stuck in his own, like he was very happy in his own position, because it didn't seem like he wanted to jeopardize that. But maybe because he knew on some level he had a surefire way of getting out. Maybe that's why, because that lady had helped him. And that was another reason why he was just so adamant about helping them, when he was like, oh yeah, people are trying to kill you. Yeah, that's why he saved them. I knew there was an ulterior motive. It's not just of getting out of there. His main focus was to keep them alive because that lady wants them alive. Particularly, she wants 5 alive, but maybe she needs them alive too. Maybe because she needs them to help her get closer to 5. I don't know. Whatever the case may be, she wanted them out of that prison, so just so she can get whatever she needs from 5 or whatever. But I'm getting well off track. The fact of the matter is, the episode is very interesting, and the fact is that the crew ends up losing their memories again. But this time, very interestingly enough, it's not. They lose the memories that they've acquired over, and they've kind of put the time frame out there since the beginning of the series, where they woke up in season 1 at the beginning till now. It's been 14 months. Everything that's happened to them in this 14 months, up to Luke, like everything from when they lost their memories till now, all the memories they've acquired till then are gone, and they've all reverted back to who they were before, into the bad people they were. Unfortunately for 5. 5's the only one that wasn't affected by it, because essentially, before things went out of control, before they lost their memories, 2 had basically downloaded, before they lost their memory, kind of downloaded samples of their memories into the system. And basically, with everything that was going down, basically they linked up with the ship and restored their original memories. 5 was trying to convince them, and was able to certain degrees. I mean, granted, I felt kind of bad for 3, because it's like he got his memories back just to find out, like, oh, Sarah's gone. So he lost her twice. It's like, oh, he lost her, but he didn't even remember her, but he still lost her. And now he remembers her, but just to find out he lost her. That was just kind of heartbreaking. That was kind of sad. But this is our first time really getting to see that side of them, because they've always held themselves back because it's like who they are, like not knowing like who they are. It's kind of nature versus nurture type of situation, because it's like without their memories they were very kind-hearted people. They kind of changed who they were. It's because of their experiences and their memories that made them who they were. So they were very cruel. They're like, yeah, we're basically gonna like sell you and the rest of the three to someone. It's like, and Five's like, that's not who you are. You wouldn't do something like that. It's like, that's actually what they would do, because they were bad people back then. Because Five does like keep forgetting that the way they are now isn't the way they originally were. I mean, the only real person that was kind of like a good person, I mean, technically two was like, I mean, not two, sorry, confusing there. 1 and 6 were the only kind of quote unquote good ones. Granted, 6 is kind of like, well, I mean, he was good until he kind of went a little crazy. But at the same time, it's kind of like, well, the system he was a part of was corrupt. So what's to say he wasn't necessarily corrupt? It doesn't seem like he was corrupt. It seems like he was actually a good officer, that he was trying to, abide by justice, do the right thing. So, but it seems like the only one that was kind of a good guy was 1. So, but that was very interesting seeing that side of them. Luckily, 5 was able to kind of restore their memories because, kind of diving into 2's memories a little bit, basically going to a point where it's like, oh, this is like one of like a memory where you were at your weakest. It's when you felt the most alone and afraid. Basically, 5 got, like, we didn't really get a look at it, but 5 did, saying like the things they treated you like a slave. They pushed you pretty far. Like they went, all the things they went through just trying to track you down. You had to spend so much time on a run, and that's what helped make you into who you are now. So it's not your fault the way you are. She's like, I just want my friend back, so was able to get their memories back. But it turns out their memories aren't completely deleted. They're there in their brain. They're there on certain parts of their brain, but it's kind of like they can't quite reach it. It's kind of blocked off. And they're like, hey, we could get our memories back and also maintain these memories we've acquired over these 14 months. We get to keep both memories without having to sacrifice one. But 5 is like, no, don't do it. You'll turn into different people. And the android agreed, because it's like, yeah, basically you acquire your old memories, it will completely overlay your personality and you'll simply turn back into who you were. So, and none of them are really adamant about becoming who they were. They are fine with who they are now. Yes, they share some similarities with who they were, but they're nowhere near as like evil and cruel as they used to be, especially in 3's case. And I did like the fact is that 5 gave him that case of his that basically had all those like things, I guess stuff that's connected to his childhood, as well as necklace from Sarah, and he's just like, thanking her for giving that to him. Also, we have basically activated some kind of transponder at the very end of the episode. Someone like recognized the transponder as like, yo, Marcus activated his. Like, whether they're friend or foe, we won't know until the next episode of who these guys are and and what exactly the connection to Marcus is and what they want. Now, Marcus brought up the fact is, I mean, I'm going to go back to call him in 3. I just want to call him Marcus in that case, because I'm so used to, like, I will never probably ever refer to them by their actual names on many occasions. I will always refer to them as their numbers, because it's so much easier, because that's who they are, because it also separates, that's your way of kind of separating who they were. It's like the difference between 3 and the difference between Marcus, so, but the thing is, the fact of the matter is, they kind of brought up the fact. Something I really want to quickly jump on is the fact is of how powerful 2 really is. Like, the fact of the matter is, it's not something she ever thought, it never came up, but the fact is, with what she is able to link up the ship and, have full access to it. She's like, it makes her feel powerful, it makes her feel, and we got bits of it, like, throughout the episode of her activating the ship, closing doors, opening doors, even at one point trying to open the airlock. So it showed you, it's like, you really don't get a full display of just what she's capable of. Like, she is a very deadly weapon, and it's kind of interesting that we kind of, like, she's never used her powers to that. I mean, granted, her power, well, the nano machines inside of her, she doesn't know how, I don't think she knows how to consciously activate them It's just kind of like, I mean, obviously they act on their own, like when she's put in a certain conditions, but it's like, I don't think she can actively control them. So it's not something she could actively do. But I guess it's something maybe we'll get to see in the future, is seeing her kind of using what she is to her own advantage, because she's very reluctant to tap into that side of her, because she doesn't want to be that quote unquote monster. Because very interestingly enough, it came up earlier. It's like, oh, maybe we should. The other three were like, oh, let's scan too, and Five had to be like, no, don't scan her. Like, it's just going to show up like everyone else. They're like, okay. But it's like they still don't know. They knew she had access to the ship, but I guess Five kind of left that out. That was kind of interesting, though. Five didn't trust him. She, maybe she trusts him a little bit more now. Like I said, sadly, with the whole Eric's situation. But at the same time, it's just like she was forced to trust them because she didn't have anyone else to rely on. The androids are out of commission, plus they're basically stuck with their old memories. So. But what the point I was going to get at, I do remember. I was thinking about it, I just couldn't get quite to it. It's the fact is, 3 brought up the fact is that, like, I won't get back my old memories yet. So it makes you wonder, will there be a situation that calls for them to get their old memories back? They need it. Not just them, but also Five. And from what it seems like, from what happened in this episode, it seems like their old memories are still downloaded in her brain as well. But it's kind of interesting because it always seemed like, okay, their memories were completely wiped and they were put in her brain. But it seems like it's like they were copied onto her. They're still there. It's like, obviously your brain is like a computer anyway. So it's like the hard drive is still there. All the information is there, but it's behind heavy firewalls. And she's the only one that has like a fully opened, to a certain degree, like hard drive. She can't access the memories 100%, but she can to certain degrees. I think with those machines that kind of help her focus a little bit more, narrow down on the memories. So overall, a very interesting episode. I really like that. Fact of the matter is, we got a little taste of who they were, as well as, kind of finding out that little secret about that little nugget of information about their memories. So like I said, the fact is that he brought that up, and the fact that 3 was like not yet, makes me think there's going to be a situation where they're going to have to get their memories back because of just whatever the circumstances may be. So many, just like Killjoys, so many questions, like what does that lady want from Five? Like I said, there was that card, like she was with her friend, that boy, the one they found in a ship in the first season, that she found that little card thing, or that little, it looked like a card or whatever. Obviously, it was something else. Basically, she stole that off somebody. So I'm thinking maybe this is connected to that, or maybe it's connected to Emily's past in general. Maybe not specifically that, but maybe something connected to her family, because they did die in an accident. So, even like Emily hasn't really brought up like what she actually remembers, like what she actually learned, like, because Six told her like, oh, your real name's Emily, there's all this and that, and it's kind of like, well, she never really talked about whether she really looked into her file or not. So, and once again, I'm wondering in the back of my mind, what are they going to do with the whole One situation? Like, is he really dead? I hope he's not, but I get the feeling just with the way everything's playing out, yeah, he's definitely dead. Like I said, they're going to run into Jace, and that's going to be kind of interesting. But like I said, specifically, there's something up with that, because I brought it up last time. I had never realized it when it happened. I didn't bring it up at that time because I didn't think about it. Jace wouldn't, like, obviously he wants to kill the guy because he wants to kill Derek because Derek had his face, but also because he was hired to it. Like, he doesn't do that type. He's a mercenary, so he does, he gets hired to do jobs. So it's like, obviously, it's all going to come back around. Like, I get the feeling maybe Derek's not dead, maybe he faked his death, and maybe he had Jace help him. I don't know. I'm very, like, that's kind of theories I'm throwing out there. Maybe he is dead and gone, there's no coming back from it. But I'd be very interested to see if that is the case, of like, oh, he faked his death, or maybe someone faked his death for him, and he's kidnapped and being held somewhere, and the team's basically going to have to save him or something. Don't know, just throwing it out there. But really, this is all I wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.